So, good evening. My name's Greg Gruenfelder. I'm a resident of Rhode Island, active voter.
Can you just make sure the button is up?
It is. Let me move it much closer. So, my name's Greg Gruenfelder. I'm a Rhode Island resident and a voter. I was shooting probably before I can really remember. As as a child, my father would take me target shooting, and I've pretty much shot my whole life. I received my first rifle when I was 18. I've been a member of a gun club for years. I have a town-issued concealed carry permit from Woonsocket, which I will tell you was extremely difficult to get due to the strange licensing and varied licensing requirements that exist. I was talking to someone recently about this, and I said, they quoted one survey, and it was from every town for gun safety, and then you look at the other side, and they have equally biased polls sometimes. So I found a good study, and it's actually something. It was a study initiated by President Obama through an executive order, and it's called Priorities to Reduce the Threat of Firearm-Related Violence. It came out in 2013. It is by the National Academies of Science. It is peer-reviewed. And on that, on page 15, it says, almost all national surveys indicate that defensive uses by victims, it would be defensive gun uses by victims, are at least as common as offensive use by criminals, with estimates of annual uses ranging from 500,000 to more than 3 million in the context of 300,000 violent crimes involving firearms. So there are too many violent firearm crimes, there's no question. But the fraction, between 500,000 and 3 million defensive uses for 300,000 offensive uses in the whole country in a year. Guns save lives. Going further down through that study, there's another portion where they deal specifically with public mass shootings. And their quote is, according to the Congressional Research Service, public mass shootings have claimed 547 lives and led to an additional 476 injured victims between 1983 and 2013 when that was published. That's too many. Then I looked and I said, I wonder how many people die from other random, rare things. Mass shootings are very rare events. They're sensationalized by the media, but they're very rare. So if you look at the National Weather Service, you're actually more than 2.5 times more likely to die by being struck by lightning and killed than to die in a public mass shooting in this country. That's not what you see on the news. And when you go further through the report from President Obama's commission, they address things like the fact that the media sensationalizes violence, right? And they actually deal with how susceptible the minds of children are to this violence, right? And they're seeing it every day because it is a self-perpetuating cycle, basically. But they actually attribute some of the incidents to the media basically putting it out there constantly. I also do not believe in trading a liberty for a small amount of security that is very tenuous at best. I do oppose almost all of the restrictions, the magazine capacity, lawful transport. Actually, the lawful transport of a rifle, I have a point in that it doesn't seem to exclude or provide you the ability to, let's say, transport a rifle to the airport if you're going hunting. I want to go to Montana. I'm a felon if I do that, according to the way this is written. There's a lot of things there that aren't really proper. Also, we've seen a lot of young people today that have come before us, and they're 17, 18, on both sides. There's been talk about us increasing the age of ownership for a rifle to 21. But the kids that we've had here today are the ones that we're prohibiting. They're good kids, adults. I don't support it. I shot when I was 18. I could never support that. I did want to talk a little bit. There's a lot of other bills, that I won't get into. One of them is that we're talking about restricting concealed carry by a permit holder on school grounds. I live diagonally from a school about 100 yards, and so I pass it going to and forth to work if I go for a walk constantly. It's right next to a park. When I bought my house, after I bought it, I found out that someone got off the highway, picked the first street, picked the first park, abducted a girl, and murdered her. And so the park is named after her, and it's adjacent to a school. And I was coming home from work last fall on my motorcycle, and there was a guy slumped up against a telephone pole, and I thought he might have been dead. So I stopped to see if I could render aid, and sort of said, tried to browse him, and he wasn't dead. So he woke up, and he started to come at me. And I called the police right away. And the first thing they asked me is, "You have a concealed carry permit, do you have your gun on you?" And I was adjacent. I was backing up at this point, and he was coming across the street at me. And I backed up basically adjacent to school property at this point, and everything was fine. The police showed up, and life was good. I think he was high on something, according to the police, and he was a frequent flyer. This was not a uncommon thing, and he didn't exhibit any gun violence. He was just a little violent and obviously high. But the incident ended, and there was no involvement of firearms at all. But in the light of these recent shootings, I was thinking about the fact that the police were great. They got there in about 3 minutes. It was amazing. The whole school shooting we've been talking about a lot, took 6 minutes. And if you're telling me as a concealed carry permit holder that if I saw that guy and he had a gun, but he was 4 feet further onto school properties, that I'm not to stop him, I don't want to get involved. You're telling me I can't get involved to stop this when I could, and the police won't be there for 3 minutes or 6 minutes, or we don't know how long. I mean, they're going to do the best they can, but I really question wisdom of what is being proposed there. That's actually it.